We will take our first Bible reading from the book of Luke chapter 23, verse 1 to 38. Luke chapter 23, verse 1 to 38. I read. And the whole multitude of them arose and laid him unto Pilate. Verse 2. And they began to accuse him, saying, We found this fellow perverting the nation, and forbidding him to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ a king. Verse 3. And Pilate asked him, saying, Art thou the king of the Jews? And he answered him, and said, Thou sayest it. Verse 4. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and to the people, I find no fault in this man. Verse 5. And there were the more fierce, saying, He stirred up the people, teaching throughout all Jewry, beginning from Galilee to this place. Verse 6. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man were a Galilean. Verse 7. And as soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem at that time. Verse 8. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceeding glad, for he was desirous to see him for a long season, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracles done by him. Verse 9. Then he questioned him in many words, but he answered him nothing. Verse 10. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. Verse 11. And Herod, with his men of war, set him at naught, and mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. Verse 12. And the same day, Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him. And they before him, they were at enmity before themselves. Verse 18. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, verse 14, said unto them, Ye have brought this man unto me, as one that perverted the people. And behold, I have examined myself before you, have found no fault in this man, touching those things before you accused him. Verse 15. No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him. And lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. Verse 16. I will therefore chastise him and release him. Verse 17. For of necessity he must release one unto them at the feast. Verse 18. And they cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas. Verse 19. Who for a Satan's sedition made in the city, and for murderer was cast into prison. Verse 20. Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spake again to them. Verse 21. But they cried, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Verse 22. And he said unto them the third time, Why What evil had he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. Verse 23. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. Verse 24. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. Verse 25. And he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their will. Verse 26. And as they laid him away, they laid hold upon one Simeon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Jesus. Verse 27. And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. Verse 28. But Jesus, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. Verse 29. For behold, the days are coming, in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bear, and the paps which never gave suck. Verse 30. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. Verse 31. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? Verse 32. And there were also two other malefactors laid with him to be put to death. Verse 33. And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, and the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left. Verse 34. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. Verse 35. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with him derided him, saying, He saved others, let himself, for he be Christ, the chosen of God. Verse 36. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering him vinegar. Verse 37. And saying, If thou be the King of the Jews, save thyself. Verse 38. And the superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, This is the King of the Jews. May the Lord bless his word in Jesus' name.